The state machine is designed to simplify managing groups of parameters or settings or actions that needs to be executed or changed together as a group when something has happened. For example, a state of a particular system has changed. It is structured in a table format so that it makes it easier to understand the different actions or parameters that are changing depending on a specific quote unquote state. Users can make use of the structure and define what exactly does it mean by a state and the groups of things that should belong together in the same state machine. It is possible to create more than one state machine in the same project file as well. So let's take a quick look at this state machine and see what it actually does. You can have, for example, load different presets, call different workflows, generic actions, or a specific functions within different workflows. Or you can then also define, for example, some string variable, some numerical variable, and some color variables. So those are just some examples, but of course, there are more. So here are just a list of some of those things, for example. And depending on what they are, some of them will sort of happen automatically when we go into a specific state. So for example, under presets, any of the presets that are selected, as long as we create the preset column and we link it to the different presets, and under here we've got a preset for the video hub. On the first outputs, we're going to switch to input 1, 2, or 3. And that's what the preset 1, 2, and 3 are for. And then, for example, we've got a workflow called generic events 1, which will write something to log. And then generic event 2 under a separate workflow, which is going to cause a notification to happen. So things like these will automatically be executed without you actually having to do anything at all. As soon as you say that I want to go into that specific state, it will go and trigger those things to happen. Some other things, for example, just a string, and obviously we've changed the label, so it's called a OSC path. We've got a value. These are just basic variables. And in those situations, what you can do is under the state machine, you can then say, I am interested in being notified that I have a state change. And on the events of a changing of a state, I want to then send a OSC message. And depending on the path and the value that is being placed into the state machine, I can then say I want to go and grab the column that's called OSC path and the cell content of that for the path. And then similarly, I am then also grabbing the value from the value column and the cell content on that value column as well. So that is how you can then just create one single action, but it is dynamic and loading based on this table here. And it's quite clear as to what is going on. You can see some of these little icons here, which means that the arrow going up means it will follow the value that is defined over here, for example. So if I just change this to, instead of test, I do test 1, then any of these ones below will follow that value. So you don't have to go in and actually change it multiple times, for example. And then the ones with the little X, that just means we're going to ignore and it's not going to provide an actual value there in that situation. So for example, in that state, you do not actually want to send a OSC message. So that's how you can do that by just leaving it blank. then in this action here, it will just get a blank message. So basically, it's not going to, doesn't have a path, doesn't have value. So the OSC message will just send to a blank path with a blank value. So what you can do is then you can then go in any other location, whether it is manually coming in and executing on that. You can see we've got the notification that pops up. And if we go into the video hub, we can then also see the input switch to input 2, or output 1 has switched to input 2 because we've got a preset 2 on that as well. And then if we open up a OSC monitor, we would have seen that OSC path message is being sent as well. So that is how you would manage that. And you can tie that to a button, which is then just cycling through the different states. But of course, within Grid, you can, of course, build a logic based on the definition of your state machine, and under different situations, values or properties or things that are happening in real time, then jump and ask this state machine to jump to a specific state. And that just helps you to have groups of things that are happening together that will change together at the same time. But you just need to come in here and swap that. And if you don't like that and you don't like that state to switch to that preset, it's very clear as to how that pairs with other things. So it's just having a nice overview of how everything is collected together and when things will be triggered together at the same time and how they reference to each other. And as mentioned, you can have multiple of these. So you can then have a state machine for certain things and another state machine for another things to manage different groups of properties or parameters. And you can go off and manage and be much easier and much more organized in terms of how you create and control some of the settings that it's spread across your entire system.